Good morning, David Sisson here, Head of Operations at The Well. I believe I may well even be the first person to wish those men of you that are listening in a happy Father's Day today, and that's truly an honour. As a father myself, I'm constantly reminded of the opportunity that we have to disciple the next generation coming before us, or really anybody that the Father puts in our midst. And sometimes that's biological children. Sometimes it's just those that He calls into relationship with us for the purpose of discipling. Obviously, as men and as women, we get the opportunity to do that. Today, of course, we specifically focus on men. And so I want to say thank you on behalf of the leadership of The Well for the way in which you have responded to the Lord's call to disciple those around you. This morning we are looking at Psalm 52, and in this chapter, like many that we find throughout Psalm, they can start out a little abruptly. We see a direct challenge for those who in their wild warriors stage or their misspent youth have actually chosen to do things in such a way that perhaps wouldn't honour God, and actually some of the challenge that's brought is fairly severe and significant. And I can look at that and kind of say, my goodness me, woe is me, feel terrible about it. But the reality is my life doesn't directly apply to those verses, but it certainly can cause me to reflect on the ways in which I have perhaps, carried myself in years past. And I look back to my younger years and think, while some of that is not directly relevant, there were things that I said even as a Christian, whilst well-intentioned in my immaturity. Perhaps I acted in ways that I shouldn't have done, perhaps said things I shouldn't have done, have offended people. And I'm sure there were times when in my own selfishness and desire to actually achieve something, perhaps I didn't do things the way that I should have done. But the chapter takes a great turn in verse, I think, 6, where it actually says... It says, but I am like an olive tree. That's it. I'm like an olive tree thriving in the house of God. You know, whether it was around Nazareth or Jerusalem or Samaria, as it was with much of that area, the economy was built around its prime commodity, and that at the time was olives, and the fruit of the olive tree, the wood itself, and the oil that came from those olives. And they found their way into many of the different products at the time. You know, I've held a friend's wooden cross who picked it up when they were in Jerusalem, roughly carved out of the branch of the tree. And as you hold it, you can see the texture of the rings, the annual rings that have developed as it has matured and grown. And I can't help but think, but how long was that tree sat, thriving or abiding there under the sun as it aged and matured, and how much riper the fruit will have become, and how much more intense the oils would become, or refined the oils and the extracts have become. And I can't help but as a Christian think how much more refined the oils and the extracts of a mature Christian life look like, and completely in absolute humility. Of course, as I get older, that's my desire, that the Lord use me for even greater things, but I fully submit myself to Him daily as I do so. It reminds me of another example. You know, as we talk about ascending the mountain of God, very often as you talk to people who have ascended mountains, very rarely do they pick the most vertical path and head up the hill. More often than not, they zigzag back and forth, or perhaps even go round the mountain. And really, to me, that reminds me of times in our lives where often we revisit the same things with the Father that have happened in our lives, ways in which we have an opportunity to deal with something. And each time we get more refined in the way that we deal with it and our ability to handle it and progress through it as we ascend that mountain. And each time God gives us more grace and helps us deal with it in a better way. And I give thanks to the Lord that we actually get to do that I don't, get to deal with these things one time, but I'm reminded of how to deal with these things in the best way. And so often I've given thanks to God for those years that I've been able to abide and thrive in the house of my God. And as we wrap up as we wrap up this particular chapter. I love the last couple of verses. It says, "But I'm like an olive tree, thriving in the house of God. I will always trust in God's unfailing love. I will praise you forever, O God, for what you have done. I will trust in your good name in the presence of your faithful people." So today, on this Father's Day, I bless you in the name of Jesus. I bless you to continue to walk and mature as a disciple of Christ, and that the Lord would use you in the future, well, today even, and in the future, in even greater ways and measures. Have a wonderful day.